So, greetings. Do we appreciate the media coming on with us? If you wouldn't mind, when can you put your name affiliation in the chat? I think we've know who we've invited, but we're glad you're here. So, my name's Larry Stone. I live in Clayton County near Decatur, member of an ad hoc group of environmentalists and interested community members that we call the Committee to Save Bloody Run. Most of you know the background. Supreme Beef LEC is planned as an 11,600 head cattle operation east of Monona on a 50-acre site in the headwaters of Bloody Run Creek. It's a popular trout stream and an outstanding Iowa water. It's in the region of karst, which most of you know is karst is fractured limestone bedrock that can't allow surface water to enter the aquifer. What began in 2017 as Walz Energy, which was a proposal to produce methane from food waste mixed with manure from only 10,000 cattle, has morphed into an even more massive feedlot without the methane digesters. In the interim, there 4.5, almost 5 years, there have been DNR investigations, lawsuits, bank foreclosures, and unfortunately, political involvement. The project, Supreme Beef, continues to move forward despite public objections and protests. Based primarily on our review, committee's review of emails that we obtained through Opens Records requests, the Committee to Save Bloody Run has filed a complaint with the Iowa Senate Ethics Committee against Senator Zumbach, whose son-in-law is one of the owners of Supreme Beef LLC. We believe that the senator attempted to influence the Iowa DNR to speed approval of this feedlot operation. Steve Vasey of Ames, who's another member of our committee, can provide a little bit more background. If you would, Steve, please.
Sure. So I'm going to go through very briefly the 4 parts of our complaint. And then I guess we can open it up for questions. If you see my eyes shifting from left and right, it's because I actually have my crib notes on my computer next to me, so I don't mess up too badly when I talk to you folks. So first of all, the 4 parts. We've documented the senator's interactions with the water quality section of DNR in the 2017 stormwater permit process for this facility. He personally initiated 2 meetings with DNR to discuss his son-in-law's permit application. We've documented in the eyes of at least some of the participants that the senator was hostile, demeaning to DNR staff. A DNR staff person was directed, their words, not mine, to issue a draft permit 2 weeks after the second meeting. So that's one of the areas we cover in our 29-page complaint. Second area, we've documented his interest in the earthen basin permit process, which has been a controversial issue at the very heart of the matter. It's always been an issue. How do you allow an earthen manure pit in karst terrain when there's rules in the Iowa Administrative Code that prevent that from happening? So the permit for the earthen pit was issued by DNR in September 2017, but the internal discussions were occurring at the very same time that the senator was engaging in the stormwater permit process. In fact, the stormwater folks and the wastewater engineering folks were often parts of the same email chain. So it's not much of a leap to question whether the senator was more than interested, but possibly also engaged in the earthen pit permit process, which, as I mentioned, is really one of the key elements of this whole sad story. The third part, we've documented or uncovered statistical evidence of interference with the duties of the Environmental Protection Commission. That's the government-appointed body that oversees DNR enforcement actions. At the EPC meeting in July of 2018, DNR's attempt to refer Walz Energy to the Attorney General's Office for Enforcement, it failed for lack of a second. So we had a situation where there were numerous notices of violation, non-compliance with the draft stormwater permit and the final stormwater permit, pollution of the stream, and eventually DNR field office decided this needs to be referred to the Attorney General because we don't really have enforcement capability. At the EPC meeting, it died for lack of a second. We researched 10 years of EPC meetings and requests to refer cases to the AG. And this is the only time in 10 years that they refused to even go on record with a vote. So that is just so suspicious. The ethics committee, the Senate ethics committee, can quickly resolve this. They simply need to ask the commissioners under oath, what the heck happened? It just looks so suspicious. The fourth part, we've documented the senator's interactions with DNR director that led to approval of his son-in-law's CAFO nutrient management plan just 3 days after his intervention with the DNR director. And this is a plan that was, we know because of emails, this is a plan that was about to be denied. There was a phone conversation that same afternoon between Senator Zumbach and DNR Director Kayla Lyon, the result of which was a plan was approved and additional contingencies were made to approve a further plan. So in summary, we've documented the senator's involvement since mid-2017 and continuing until at least October 2020 in several permit and plan approval processes affecting his son-in-law's businesses. So the question then becomes, at what point does a senator's involvement become interference? And at what point does interference become unethical conduct? And that's why we've submitted our complaint to the Senate Ethics Committee. I'll pause there for effect or for questions.
Questions from any of the media?
If not, Larry, I can continue on and discuss for a moment what we hope to accomplish.
Yes, Steve, go ahead.
All right, so what do we hope to accomplish? First of all, we're not naive enough to believe that politics is absent from state agency decisions. We all know elections have consequences. But Iowans cherished our natural heritage. We believe it's DNR's duty to protect it. That's why they exist. So while politics may influence the tone and tenor of DNR's actions, we cannot allow individual politicians to interfere with DNR for the benefit of themselves, business partners, or family members. We just can't allow that. That's too far. It's a bridge too far. So regardless of what the ethics committee investigates, if they investigate our complaint or dismiss it, we still see value in creating a public record of this entire episode. As we've said before, Bloody Run is special. From the perspective of water quality, if we can't protect the very best natural areas in the state, then we really can't protect any of them. So we felt it was important to get a reasonable summary of this in the public record, regardless of whether the ethics committee pursues our complaint to its logical conclusion.
Brian Tabick with KCRG in Cedar Rapids. First of all, I just want to ask, these allegations are basically stemmed from emails that you guys obtained through FOIAs, correct?
Yes, let me answer that a bit more completely. The basis for the complaint, where did the evidence come from? So we've compiled documents from a variety of open records requests, some filed by members of the committee, some filed by the people. If you Google Iowa DNR open records, you'll get to a portal that lets you look at open records requests that people have filed and that DNR has responded to. Unfortunately, not all records seem to be there for some reason. But we first heard about this in 2017. There were rumors flying around back when the stormwater permit was up for public comment, that there had been some unethical conduct or political interference, but there were rumors. So since then, we've had private conversations with various people over the past several years, and those conversations support our claims. But some of the conversations were in confidence, some were presenting information that was not firsthand. So in the end, as a committee, we decided in our complaint just to quote and footnote emails and documents that are in the public record, and that's what we've done. And should the ethics committee choose to investigate our claims, we've included an appendix, a complete list of the people we know were involved with DNR's actions and could provide firsthand testimony. So that's what we decided was the best approach for us. Base our complaint on email and other open records documents, and then if they so choose, allow the committee to directly interview people who are involved.
I was talking to the senator yesterday, and he, as you can probably imagine, full on dismissed these claims, saying that this is not even true. What do you guys have to say about that?
Well, as I say, I know very little about Senator Zumbach personally, and we're questioning his actions as an Iowa State senator that pertain to interference with regulatory decisions benefiting his son-in-law's companies. We're not attacking him on any other basis. So once again, we've documented his interference in the process. There's no question about that. We have the email records to back it up. So then you have to sort out, okay, at what point does involvement in the process become interference? And at what point does interference become unethical conduct? And so for him to deny that he had any involvement in this is just silly. We have the public records.
If I could follow up, Brian, on your question, the DNR has a history of lax enforcement of livestock operations, but this Supreme Beef incident just goes beyond anything I've ever seen before in terms of lax enforcement. The DNR failed to follow its own rules. It failed to apply the facts, and we wondered why. We asked the DNR to explain why they approved the nutrient management plan despite all of its deficiencies, and they didn't respond, or very vague answers. And so then, as Steve says, we put this together with what we could see from the email chains about Senator Zumbach's involvement, and that sure seemed to be the answer. There's just no other way to explain it, I don't think. So that's why we think this is important action for us to take, and that was certainly the basis for the Sierra Club's lawsuit challenging the nutrient management plan, that the DNR failed to follow its own law and regulations and ignored the facts.
Your group says that these rumors started flying in 2017. That was 5 years ago. What, I guess, makes you guys believe this is the time to file this ethics complaint?
Well, as I mentioned, back in 2017, some of us were involved in the stormwater permit approval process, and that allowed for a public hearing, but that public hearing only considered comments related to the actual stormwater mitigation practices that were in the stormwater plan. Nothing related to the environment or damage to the environment was admitted or allowed to be considered in the stormwater permit decision. So throughout the entire process, starting with stormwater in 2017, starting even before that, in early 2017, when there was a water withdrawal permit approved, there has been no mechanism for the public to engage in actually putting forward evidence of environmental damage that will occur that was considered pertinent to the meeting. So the stormwater meeting, they dismissed all of it because it wasn't pertinent to the actual stormwater permit application. And the nutrient management plan, they dismissed all of it out of hand, saying, well, none of that was actually pertinent to the review of the nutrient management plan. And so, and because they've labeled this as an open feedlot, even though it is by any definition a confinement, 11,600 cows, each with exactly 25 square feet of living space, 24/7, 365 days a year. Tell me that's not a confinement. But because they've designated it as an open feedlot, it was not subject to what's called the master matrix review. And recall, the master matrix review, as flawed as it might be, does have a mechanism for public comment about potential impacts on the environment. So throughout the entire process, even until when the company decided to claim they would be non-discharging and therefore not be required to get a federal NPDES permit for discharging, which would have triggered public comments. So every step along the way, they've dodged and weaved to avoid public comments about the environment and to somehow try to get rid of around this issue of how come we're letting them have this huge earthen pit in an area of karst terrain when that's simply not allowed under Iowa code as we read it.
And I think what really triggered us initially was when we were reviewing the nutrient management plan and asking questions about, why it was being approved. We got some records, and there was an email from Becky Sexton, who prepared the nutrient management plan, and that's where we saw first Senator Zumbach's involvement, that he had talked to the DNR director, Kayla Lyon, and persuaded her to allow a partial approval of the nutrient management plan. And that led us then, as Steve said, to look back at other records that we eventually got, and that puts together the whole story.
Is the actual complaint posted anywhere where I'd be able to get a copy of it? I only have the press release.
Yes, Brian, I believe I sent that to the station, sent it to Phil Reed when I sent out the notice about the press conference. Or I can, if you can get your email to me, I can send you another copy of it.
I'll also be posting it on our webpage, SaveBloodyRun.org. So later this afternoon, once I get off this call, I'll put the actual document up there on our webpage. It'll be under pull down that says press releases.
Thank you. That's all I had.
Anybody else? Oh, I should. I was remiss maybe in not introducing Wally Taylor. Wally is the attorney for the Sierra Club, who has Sierra Club has filed a lawsuit against the Iowa DNR for not following their own rules and regulations when approving the operation of the spring beef feedlot. So, any other questions? So, I think Steve and Wally have summed it up pretty well, and I think our evidence that we've gathered through, especially through the email chains, pretty much the evidence speaks for itself. If the Senate Ethics Committee chooses, and they have that choice, to pursue the matter, then perhaps Senator Zumbach can clarify his involvement with Supreme Beef. So. Again, we appreciate your interest, and feel free to reach out to any of us. I believe we, on the notice for the press release that we sent out, our contact information is there. But again, appreciate your continuing interest in this. So thanks to all for coming.
Thank you.